Last week, Zil Akariawe and I attempted to dissect the national anthem and pledge. Today, Steve Harris and I will take it a step further by looking at what raising leaders of tomorrow entails. Because if you recall, the second verse of the national anthem says, "O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and live in just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign." Let's look at the sentences. Guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know. How do we raise leaders, let alone guide them right? What leadership truth should we be teaching our youth to properly equip them for the role of becoming leaders of tomorrow? Before we delve into this, let me introduce my guest, Steve Harris, fondly called Mr. Ruthless Execution, is a trusted authority in the fields of life and business strategy, a highly sought after management consultant, business accelerator and author, as well as the CEO of Edge Execution. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Steve is regarded as one of Africa's leading business coaches, and I'm thoroughly honored to have him here with us today. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, glad to be here. Good morning.
Good morning. It's an awesome morning because you're here.
You're here. Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody complains about our leaders. Yeah?
Yeah.
And when I hear the complaints, what comes to mind for me is why.
Right.
Yeah? Someone made these leaders and people enable them. So why are we absorbing ourselves of responsibility? Why are we acting like they became bad leaders all on their own?
Right.
You know, we need to spend more time. For me, we need to spend more time on tomorrow's leaders.
Right.
So for me, when people talk about the existing leaders and how bad they are, as much as I'm like, okay, yeah, they're bad, they didn't get there on their own, I think the focus needs to shift.
Right.
You know, our leaders for tomorrow are the younger people.
Uh-huh.
And we need to be able to fix the problem that we created.
Right.
So let's delve right in. And I want to start by differentiating between leaders and leadership.
Right.
What is the difference?
Well, great question and good morning. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Now, I think leadership is a state of responsibility. And I think a leader is anyone who takes responsibility, whether or not you have position. So I'll say that again. Leadership is a state of assuming responsibility.
Okay.
And a leader is anyone who assumes that responsibility. Whether or not you have a political or titular position, you're a leader. A mom is a leader. A father is a leader. A teacher is a leader. Give you an example. If you've ever been in traffic and you notice that maybe there's so much chaos and, you know, no driver wants to give way to the other, one of the things you'll notice, and I've seen this happen too many times, some random guy, and in some cases I've seen somebody you would consider as physically challenged. He has no car. He has no skin in the game. And all of a sudden that physically challenged guy he assumes responsibility for clearing traffic, and automatically he becomes the leader. He tells everyone to stop, he tells them to go, and everyone listens to a guy who, so to speak, is physically challenged, who, number one, doesn't have a car, so he has no skin in the game. He has no air conditioning. He was just minding his business, but he saw a problem and decided to take responsibility for solving that problem. That person is a leader. That's what I think.
Yeah, you're 100% right, because we see a lot of these guys in Lagos traffic and everybody listens to them. And a lot of the times it's not that somebody has asked them to do it.
Sure.
They've just decided that that's what they're going to do.
And have you also noticed that the guys who actually are the leaders, so for example, you know, the traffic regulatory agencies who are wearing the uniforms, may tell you to stop and you won't listen to them.
Yep.
So that means having a position doesn't make you a leader. Why? Because you didn't take responsibility. So anyone who takes responsibility for fixing a problem, whether or not they're rewarded for solving that problem, that person is a leader and that person should be followed.
Very, very true. So that then takes me to the question: is leadership a gift or is it a learned skill?
Leadership is a gift of responsibility.
Okay.
So I'll say that again. Leadership is a gift and a burden of responsibility. So yes, I know that there's the argument about nature versus nurture. Are leaders born or are they made? But I think a leader is someone who has taken responsibility, who refuses to agonize about the problem and chooses to organize a solution. Now, if you think about it, I mean, all of us can be pundits about Nigeria. We can talk about Nigeria's issues from pre-colonialism till now, and we all have an opinion. But how many of us are taking responsibility to solve the problems that we see in Nigeria? And you hear people say, let me run for office. And weirdly enough, you try to run for office to make things better, and the people who are supposed to be leaders are the ones who will pull you down.
Frustrate you,
They'll
yeah.
frustrate you.
Yeah.
So I think leadership is both a gift, but it's also a burden.
Yeah.
It's a burden, and I think that's how we need to be able to look at it.
Leadership is a gift and a burden. So how do we then navigate through this gift/burden called leadership? Where do we begin?
I think something that is most central to the conversation of leadership is values. What are the values we're trying to build in our society? What are the values we want to see? Because I hate to break it to us, the leaders we have, there's an aphorism that says the leaders you get is a reflection of the society you have.
Yes.
And most societies deserve the leaders they get. So the question is, if we're complaining about the leadership we have in Nigeria, or quote unquote the lack of leadership we have in Nigeria, it's a microcosm of the society we come from. Because those leaders have enablers.
Yep.
And many times we need to ask ourselves, are we enabling bad behavior? A thing about leadership is accountability. A thing about leadership is feedback. So if there's no room for feedback, there's no room for accountability, then people are just going to run riot. So the question is, are we building a society of enablers of bad leadership, where everyone is waiting to see, it's my turn, me too, let me to get there and get my own share. So the question is, are we agitating to get into leadership positions for the values of good governance across all levels and not necessarily just political? Or are we just there because we're saying, it's my turn, or you guys have marginalized me too, I need to get my own share? Because everyone wants a slice of the cake, but no one's cooking. No one's cooking in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big problem we have.
Yeah, you've hit on some real home truths, because it's about the values.
Yeah.
It's about the enablers, and lots of us, even the passive ones,
Right.
are enablers.
Absolutely.
Because rather than saying, no, that's wrong, that's not right, we're like, please, I don't have time for this, let me go about my business.
Yeah.
We're enablers.
Yeah.
I am an enabler. I'm
Absolutely.
not going to lie and say I'm not. So how do we begin to change this narrative? But there's even two parts to this. There's the grown people,
Yeah.
and they're the future leaders.
Right.
How do we change the narrative for the future leaders?
All right. So, when we started this conversation, you started by looking at the second stanza of the national anthem, and I think it's such a powerful stanza. Personally, I think that's my favorite verse.
That's
and I
everybody's
think
favorite
that
verse.
really should be our anthem. Shout out to all you people. I think that should be our anthem. But the words are very profound. O God of creation, direct our noble cause. So let's break it down. So when it says, O God of creation, let's leave that part. Direct our noble cause. What does that mean? It means give us a cause that is bigger than where we are. Give us something, give us a vision that is much larger than our capacity to ever achieve. Give us something. I mean, I'm a big fan of, successful leadership models. And, we look at Dubai today, which is the world's tourism marketplace. And when they started, they only had three things they had going for them. They had sun, they had sand, and they had sea.
Yep.
And then they set a vision to be the world's biggest tourist destination. It didn't look like that when they started that vision, but they had a noble cause, right? And then the next line, O God of creation, directs our noble cause, it says, guide our leaders right. Now, for me, I tend to rephrase that line instead of saying just guide our leaders right. Give us the right leaders that will lead us in the right direction. That's how I interprets it. So because we take it and say, oh, guide our leaders right. Yeah, but we must have the right leaders to lead us in the right direction. There's a strategy in management, and they say that when you want to get people on a bus to go in a certain direction, you don't just put people on the bus. The first thing you need to do is to get the wrong people off the bus. Then you get the right person on the bus, the right leader who is now saying, this is the direction we're going. So we must chart a direction to say, let's get the wrong people off the bus. Then get the right people on the bus and say, where are we going? Then when we get the right people on the bus, we must put them in the right positions. Because if you get the right guy, put him in the wrong place, he's not going to be able to deliver. It's like square pegs in round holes. So when I think about that, guide our leaders right, I'm thinking about getting the right people on the bus, getting them on the right seats, getting them going in the right direction. And then the last thing, which is the question you asked me, is help our youth the truth to know. So what is the truth? We need to be able to ask the question. So what is the youth? What's the truth we want the youth to know? First off, I don't believe in the aphorism of leaders of tomorrow. I believe that we're leaders now. We may get position tomorrow, but we're leaders right now. So we need to let the youth know that instead of waiting for position, you can take responsibility right now. And the position can come as proof or as a reward for demonstrated capacity. So all of us are leaders. We've got demonstrated capacity, but unfortunately, and I hate to tie this just to politics, we limit political leadership to leadership in politics. Now, what does that mean? We say to ourselves that the value or the reward for this person becoming an elected official is that he must have demonstrated political leadership within a political framework. So he must have been in local government, then to the House, and then to Congress, and then to Senate. Therefore, he can become president. So he can't come from outside where he has demonstrated capacity, right? So the question again is, what are the values of leadership that we're espousing? Are we looking for people we want to reward with political power because they've been in the political system? Or are we asking ourselves to bring people from everywhere who have demonstrated leadership? It may be owning an orphanage. It may be getting kids off the street. It may be reforming and rehabilitating values, just like the last guest that was on this show was talking about. That person is a leader. But if we say all her experience over the last 20 odd years accounts for nothing because she's held no political position, then what are we going to tell our youth? So when the youth want to run, for example, we say to them they have no experience. But they've got expertise in all the wonderful things they've done. But we say, oh, they don't have political experience. So the question is, what really is the value that we want our youth to know?
That then takes me to parenting.
Yeah.
Because it seems that a lot of parents wait till their children are grown to start teaching them about leadership. In your opinion, is this the right strategy?
No, I think every parent is a leader, and every parent models leadership to their kids. I have a daughter, she's 10, and I found that the best way, and she loves to read, so it may not be the best example, but the best way to get your kids to read is for you to read. They need to see you. And when they see you, they model behavior because they're impressionable. So when you're driving out of church or your mosque on a Sunday, and the services or Friday, and the service is done and everyone's trying to get out of church and everyone is cutting and blocking. All of you just heard the same word of God, and all of you are blocking. No, you can't pass me. And your kids are in the car and they're watching.
Yeah.
And you're cussing and you're saying and all of those things are going in.
Yep.
So parents need to recognize to say, you know what, it's like, right now we're in the studio, it's lights, camera, action. And with your kids, you are constantly on air.
I see.
There's no off season. And I think that's where the modeling of the behavior that we want to be able to show in our kids is we've got to be able to model that behavior.
So we start from infancy.
The moment, technically, the moment you get pregnant, just begin. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. It's modeling the right kind of behavior that you want, because again, our nation is a reflection of the family unit that we have,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's something that I
Yep.
don't think a lot of people are aware of.
So for the young people, even though you've said we're all leaders today,
Right.
yeah, you've also given the analogy of the bus. We need to get the bad people off the bus,
Right.
and get the wrong people off the bus and get the right people onto the bus.
Yeah.
So for our next generation leaders, what skill sets do they have to be eligible to become the right people to get onto the bus?
Right. So, in my opinion, it is, you know, they talk about hard skills and soft skills, but I think I prefer the phrase human skills.
Okay.
Let me use another example. So, when we talk about politics and the arguments about who is qualified to run or this, that, and the other, a critical consideration that I think that most of us never bring into conversation is to say, what kind of leader do you want? And I think, for example, if we said we want, for example, a president that loves Nigeria. So, give you an example. I'm a parent. I didn't go to school for parenting. I didn't take any courses. Maybe, when I got married, I didn't even take any courses, so to speak. Maybe counseling class, premarital counseling. But that was it. I never went to school to become a dad. I never went to school to learn how to pay school fees and be responsible and all those things. But I make the right decisions because I love my children. And because I love my children, I will constantly make the best decisions for them. I may not have the expertise or the experience in parenting, but because I love them, I'm going to make the right decisions for them. So I say this because one of the things we need to be able to bring into the conversation is love. Do we love, right? Do we love the people? Do we love the country? If you take a sample of people today and ask them, do you love Nigeria? Most people will say no. Unfortunately. And it's not their fault. And we can quote.
Nigeria has not been good to
Exactly. We can quote JFK and say, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. But unfortunately, the reverse here seems to be the case. And you can't blame them, because through successive administrations, and I'm not even blaming the guy at the top, I'm just saying that we've not loved our people to be able to do the best for them. So when it comes to leadership skills, love is a criteria. Love. Number 2, competence. Right? And anyone who wants to lead must have shown and demonstrated competence in something in the past. Number 3, they've got to have character. Right?
They've got to stand for something.
They've got to stand for something. And everyone needs to know that the buck stops here, and this is what it is. That person needs to have character. I think to some degree that person needs to have some level of capacity. And capacity in the case of, give you an example, and I know a lot of Nigerians will be able to relate with this. If you have a generator, I bet I pass my neighbor generator. No matter how passionate that generator is, it can't power maybe a duplex. It's passionate. It's got fuel. It's got gas. It's got all those wonderful things. But if it tries to power a duplex, it's going to blow. And what will it blow? It will blow its capacitor, because it doesn't have the right capacity. So we need leaders who have largeness of heart, largeness of thought, largeness of mind, largeness of saying, I don't care who gets the credits as long as the job is done. We need leaders who are willing to work in a team. We need leaders who are willing to communicate. And even if they don't get their way, we need leaders who are willing to compromise. I know it sounds like a lot of C's that I've said, but hey, it's kind of easy to remember.
How do we have a lot of these types of leaders in corporate organizations? Yeah. We don't have a lot of them in government. There's a handful, but not enough.
True.
How do we ensure that the next set of leaders have a lot of these skill sets?
Well, there are a lot of amazing NGOs and other bodies who are investing or have invested over years in educating and raising leaders, even from high school to university, and even, governance and non-governance. We've got a lot of people doing some great work there. But let me use this metaphor. If you've got a bottle of soda and you want to dilute that bottle, you can't do that by dropping one drop of water at a time. Mm-hmm. You've got to flood that bottle of soda with water. And the more water you pour, the more diluted the soda becomes. And ultimately, after a while, you really can't tell the difference between the bottle of soda and the bottle of water, because they have been immersed. They now have the same characteristics. So in my opinion, I think we have a lot to do where the young people, allow me to use the word, whose heads are correct, need to come into the system. Like, I'll take all of the... I mean, can you imagine...
Let's rephrase heads are correct to grammatically correct for non-Nigerians.
Well, okay, so for those of y'all who are non-Nigerians who don't know whose heads are not correct, what that means, just simply means people of the right values, characters, and competence, right? Those kinds of people, and put them together into that kind of place. And I mean, can you imagine the civil service being run like one of Nigeria's tier 1 banks that are professional, that are this? Can you imagine the civil service being run like that?
It will begin to change the country from the inside out.
Absolutely. But we all have to take responsibility.
This problem of raising leaders, it's just a lot, because in my head, I'm just thinking, where do we start from? You've just talked about the civil service. Mm-hmm. Where do we start from? The local government, the local communities. Where do we start from? How are we going to get out of this quagmire of ridiculousness that is our country? If you were going to create a blueprint, I want us to end with this. If you were going to create a blueprint for getting us out of the gutter, what is it going to be?
The first thing is, again, where's this bus going? So what's the Nigeria we want? And all of us must decide. And then the question we need to ask is, how does my role affect our goal? So let me give you an example. So when I do a lot of work for change managements and organizations and say, this is our strategy, we want to get our people to do X, Y, and Z, we first ask, what's the vision? Where are we going? Once we know that and we get people's buy-in, the next question we need to ask is, okay, how does your role affect our goal? So let me use this analogy. Scripture talks about the story of the Tower of Babel, and they wanted to build a tower that would reach the heavens. That was their goal. Now, and I believe it was a goal that everyone knew. But then when you ask the question, okay, how does your role affect our goal? So imagine going back in time and you see a stonemason and you ask him, yo, dude, what's our goal? He says, our goal is to build a tower to reach the heavens. How does your role affect our goal? He says, I'm the guy who chops the stones up so that when I chop it up, it helps to build the tower that will get to the heavens. You meet the guy who's fetching water at the stream and say, what's our goal? He says, our goal is to build a tower that will reach the heavens. How does your role affect our goal? Well, without me, because I'm the guy who brings water, without my water, we cannot build a tower that would reach the heavens. So my point is, all of us must know the goal. Then we must now be responsible and stop being selfish to say, well, I can take care of my power, I can take care of lights, I can take care of this. I don't care what happens in Nigeria, because me and my estates, we're fine, we have 24 hours lights. Where all of us decide that if it's not good for the next person, then it's not good at all. Yeah. That's where we need to start from.
That's where we need to start from. Leadership, topic that never ends. We will continue. My role is to keep talking about it. Steve's role is to keep being a change agent.
Right.
We all have roles to play. So it's time we actually started doing something to get out of the quagmire that we've put ourselves in. And on that note, I want to say thank you.
I had fun.
Steve has been awesome. I'm really, really grateful. And your name precedes you.
Thank you.
So I'm really honored that you said yes.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Up next, Fumi, in place of Helen, John and myself will be rounding up the show very quickly. So please stay with us for a few more minutes whilst we round up. Thank you.